Hello, this is Stephen Dupree of NowEnergetics.com, based on YUEN Method. Welcome back to my channel. I have a weird microphone here, so I apologize a little bit for the sound if it's not as clear. Having some trouble with my technical equipment here. So I wanted to go over an interesting topic about focus and mindfulness and the kind of thing that's sort of in the lexicon and people's thoughts these days. And I wrote this article quite a while ago about focusing. One of the things in YUEN Method that we have to do, sort of as a basic principle, is to get neutral to get answers. So we really don't want to focus on any particular thing, because the answers that we get can be anything and everything and anything. So you don't want to bias or anticipate or expect or think that you already have an answer or have a story that you just really need the explanation for the story that you already have. In other words, you're not looking for another story. You just need more evidence for the story that you have. So that's a very determined focus on a particular answer or outcome. And most of the time, if that were the right answer, you wouldn't have a problem, right? So you'd strengthen, if that was the weakness, you'd strengthen that energy and you wouldn't have a problem. So most of the time that determined focus is usually on the wrong answer. So this article kind of goes over that thought process that we need to really unfocus. So we talk about focusing so much, but to really widen yourself and be open to all these different answers, you really want to unfocus, do the opposite of focus. You want to be more scattered, even though that word has sort of a negative connotation. It's really what we do in the method. And when we use our insight, we're not focused on any particular answer. We're waiting for those answers to come to us. So it's a very, very different dynamic than a thinking kind of, way of looking at solving a problem. And, the thinking really doesn't get to the right answer most of the time, except, maybe by accident once in a great while. So, the real question is, do we really need to focus? So certainly in the Western culture, we've always, kind of been indoctrinated to focus. You have to focus on things to get things done. And there are good, there are times when you need to do it. Like I say here, when you're driving a car, you probably need a certain amount of focus of your mental thinking. But, when you're trying to get answers to, from your energy and from a particular situation, you need to really be very open. You need to be very scattered in where an answer could come from. It could be anything or everything. So you need to be able to unfocus at that moment, and that opens, kind of your neutrality really to the kind of universe of answers that you're going to pull one of those answers to you out of the infinite number of answers something could be. And you're never going to find that, in kind of a thinking left brain kind of situation, right? You need to be very much in your intuitive side to get in that neutral state to get an answer for a particular situation. So that's really very important. So that, one of the sayings I have here is, focus is the anchor that prevents a situation or problem from changing. So when you're actually focused, and people don't think they're focused, they think they're open, so they're biased on a particular answer, and they're trying to get evidence to support an answer or a story they already have. But that focus that they have, even if they think they're open, unconsciously they're focusing, a million times more of their energy on what they say they're not focused on, the negative, or, it could be something like that. They're not focused on the negative, they're focused on the positive. Well, their intrinsic energy is focused on the negative no matter what comes out of their mouth. So that's a real common situation. And that's why that unconscious focus is the anchor. So we want to be neutral so that there's no different energy in our conscious or unconscious about any particular situation, whether it be one extreme or another, let's say a positive or negative type of situation or outcome. So that's a very, very common thing where people don't even know that their energy is all on one side and supporting the thing they don't want, the negative thing. So focus is not your friend here. And a lot of people don't even know they're focused. They would say they're not focused on the negative, but their energy is, and that's what manifests, because they have a million times more energy on the negative. So I don't want to take too much longer with that, because I've done other articles and videos on that. So, that's kind of where you have to watch with mindfulness too. You want to be neutral about what your thinking is at any given time. You want your energy to be neutral, not your thinking necessarily, but you want to change the energy so that any particular thought or experience or outcome has the same energy. So that's the best neutral place you want to be, where every outcome and every situation has the same energy, right? There's no higher energetic charge on one outcome, one thought, one experience than any other. That way you have more of an open possibility of something new manifesting in the next moment, especially if you're stuck in some story where some situation in your life's not changing. Well, that's like digging the hole deeper. When you know that something isn't changing, you can't, how can you possibly have the right answer if nothing's changing, right? So you don't want to insist that your story is the right answer if nothing changes, basically. So, and people have, the indoctrination is, in the Western culture, certainly it's about the fear of not focusing. So we have all these different ways that we are sort of indoctrinated about fears of not focusing. So I just list some number here. And that fear actually creates a whole lot of struggle for a lot of people. And anytime you're struggling, it's easier to be stuck. No people, someone that's moving, so, a situation that's changing does not compute for this type of struggle, right? When you're struggling, you're basically struggling and eventually going to get stuck. So there's all these different ways. And again, how do we get into that way of thinking? So I have a list of 6 different ways that most people, you'll hear this pop up in people's speech patterns of why, and you could sort of tell why someone is stuck, why they're dragging that anchor based on, what idiom, what story they give to you. Got to get my ducks in a row. I can't do that now. I got to get my ducks in a row. Well, that's, you ever try to get ducks in a row? That's not going to happen very often, once every 10,000 years, maybe. So you're waiting for an infrequent occurrence, never going to happen. It's a miracle if the planets align, So, folks that have that energy, that thought and that story in their energy, it's nothing's ever going to manifest differently for them, right? So that's very important to know that, that they have that speech pattern and that energy of things not changing very often. So, and the second one is the idea that you have to follow certain steps. So that's another anchor right there, that you have to follow certain steps, right? Where you can't just jump to an answer and jump to a solution. So that's a very, we talk about baby steps and treading slowly, treading lightly, all these different, kind of phrases that people use in their daily, speech patterns. So another one is little by little. So people are actually judging the progress as they're making progress, and they're actually not making much progress, because little progress is, not the same as something drastically changing. And people fear the drastic change, but, that's kind of what you want, but they fear it so much that they get no progress at all. Gradual progress is, you might as well be stuck, So, and the idea that you have to keep in step with other people, stay with the crowd, number 4 here in the list, it's kind of a conventional thinking. You got to stay with the crowd. You can't go ahead. You can't go faster. You can't get a new idea. You can't come up with some new insight, kind of the Nikola Tesla story that no one's ever thought of before. Well, that's kind of what we do all the time. You want to get a surprising answer that doesn't, that's no one ever else has thought of, but is the answer to the question, of the situation at hand. Here's another great phrase: 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And, if you make a mistake, people have these fears of making mistakes, because what do you do when you make a mistake? You have to go back to square one. So that's a dumb saying, but why can't you go ahead 50 squares? No, you got to go back to square one. We'll make, that kind of creates this slow progress as well, and sometimes we get punished for making mistakes, right? So there's an energy of punishment for having this kind of it's sort of a self-limiting thought, but at the same time, there's punishment associated with that. So there's people fear going into that. Progress is painful, I guess is the way to say it. Any progress is painful. And people have that in their energy, believe it or not. So that's something we have to very often clear with folks. And one of the things that you notice with a lot of folks is that, you know, the language is almost weaponized against us with our energy, so that we, you know, when we think of stepping, we step with our feet. Well, everyone has some blocked energy somewhere in their exit portals, and a lot of folks have it in their sacrum, and many people have it in their lower extremities or in their feet, where the exit portals are for energy. And we always want our energy to go down. And so that's happened very often, where you clear folks for certain situations and you end up having to clear their exit portals as well, because they're so blocked there that you know, nothing goes down and out of there. And once you do that, you can get quite a bit of clearing of sensations when you unblock exit portals. But it's a very common thing for an average person to have, and they don't even know they have it. They have no way to test for it or anything. So so when we talk about focus, again, it's really, we fear our lack of focus, but, you know, when we check the energy, it's not really what it is. And here are another 5 elements, you know, what's really bothering you. So if you check the energy of lack of focus, someone says, I'm not focused, you know, usually that tests strong for someone. That's not the issue. So, and 5 things that come up very often, you know, in sessions that I've done is people are afraid of things that are too easy. You know, that no pain, no gain mentality. You know, that something has to be difficult to be truthful or true or useful, and that's just ridiculous. You know, it could be the silliest thing that shifts you. You know, the weakness to the number 3 or something, you know, that's the silliest thing. That's not difficult at all. You know, it's a very simple concept, and it could actually block someone from shifting or noticing a shift that's already taken place. So the second one here, you know, the notion of being open is kind of tied to being scatterbrained a little bit, where you're doing, you know, you're not focused on any one thing. People would call that a scatterbrained mentality. And that always has a negative connotation in the Western culture, but it's really a more neutral place to be, because you're open to anything and everything. And that's where you want to be, right? And there's such a negative connotation of someone being just, you know, fickle or lazy or something like that. So the other thing about focusing is a lot of people are weak to this unfocused way we want to be in our neutrality. And they often, you know, some people have weaknesses to focus in general, and it's usually not what they think. You know, they'll tell you a story about not being able to focus, and what's really bothering them is when other people focus on them. So that's kind of an interesting one that comes up more often than you'd expect. And just the notion that conventional versus unconventional, you know, the herd mentality, the measure of truth is consensus of the herd. Conventional is about consensus, right? It's not whether it's right or wrong, right? We're always looking, it's either right or it's not right. And people are always looking that the conventional way is better because everyone does it, right? It doesn't, you know, it doesn't mean anything, right? It could be completely wrong, could be wrong for 1,000 years. So we don't look at anything necessarily that's conventional. We just are neutral, and we find, you know, whatever answer we find in the energy, right? We check the energy, no assumptions. And, you know, sometimes it's, you know, part of the struggle, and you know, people think that focus is difficult. So when they try to focus, just the word focus itself, so it brings up all these experiences when they failed, you know, so it's sort of a try, fail experience. You know, people have experiences when they try something, they don't succeed on the first try. So as soon as you think about the word try, you're already going to fail. You're already thinking you're going to fail. You're energized in that outcome. So, and trying is linked to failing more than successful. That can be true in someone's energy. So we need to check for that, right? And so in order to be neutral, you really do need to be more open, and open in the sense, and I'm gonna redefine this as being scatterbrained. You just kind of you can get the answers coming at you from any direction, and you want that openness in your intuition to be able to do that, and you need to be neutral about where the answer could come from. A 3-year-old could bump you and give you an answer, or you could get it from the universe. I mean, it could be from anywhere. So we have to be open that that could happen. And when we're open that that could happen, it's more likely that would happen. We're more neutral about where we're going to get the answers. That's going to be the most, it's going to give us the most chance of success, right? Where we have, some complete openness about where the answers come from. So you also have to be, one of the things that we're not conventional, and we're very, I won't say proud of it, but we're neutral about it, certainly, that we're not conventional. And we don't even think about the word conventional. It's either strong or weak, right? So that's where we get our answers. It's not whether it's conventional or not conventional. It's whether it's right or wrong, whether it's the weakness or not the weakness, right? So in everything that's strong, we throw out. It's basically, we have to have that neutrality about just getting to the answer, and we don't care about anything that's conventional, or we're not trying to be lockstep with anyone else. We don't care about consensus or anything else. We're just trying to get to the answer. So, and we don't need to struggle. This again, modern Western culture is always that we have to struggle to get answers, right? So that's an anchor right there, and it's a collective anchor. It's not just, it's an individual anchor. It's also a collective anchor. So, so again, the scatterbrain, like any other checking of a weakness, if someone presents us with something that's strong, we move on immediately, right? We don't give that story any credence, and we tell the client the same thing, that we need to throw out that story, right? And I often have a baseball analogy here. Is you're basically a catcher, and you just have your catcher's mitt, and you're waiting for the pitch, right? Your intuition is, you're open and you're neutral, and you just have your catcher's mitt out, and something's going to pop into the mitt, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to be reaching out for anything necessarily, but your neutrality allows that answer to come to you. So that's what you want. And so we want to be more scatterbrained. So the bottom line is we want to be more scatterbrained. And when you're scatterbrained, you're going to get some really funny answers, and they're going to be the correct answers. It's not just that they're, people are afraid of funny answers. They think all answers got to have to be serious. Well, that blocks about 95% of the answers, because most of the answers is going to be some opposite that is going to be funnier than what you thought of, right? You think of some serious answer, and conventionally that's what people think of. They're thinking of all these serious answers, and it's usually something as silly or simple, or certainly, different than what you thought it was. And many times it's the funny answers that shift us. So, and we don't want to focus too much in the present, right? So we don't want to anchor ourselves to the past. We want to delete things from the past, and we want to get that energy cleared and neutral. And then we want the past, present, and future to have the same energy, right? So there's no difference to us. So we want to, one take of this focus and unfocused article is that we don't want to focus on anything. We don't want to be focused in the present moment, because that's just means that we're going to be stuck there. George Carlin had a great skit about the present moment, and he basically said there's no present because it keeps moving, right? So it's like you're chasing it, right? So you don't want to be in that state of confusion of trying to plant somewhere in the present moment. And in the present moment, it's always moving. It's moving immediately to the past, right? So there'll always be a struggle or a chaos with that kind of focus, in my opinion. So we just want to not focus at all, right? That's what this article is about. It's the unfocusing, and certainly in the time element. And delete the effects of the past that weaken our energy, strengthen ourselves in the future. Again, we're doing past, present, future here. And you want to be, the scatterbrain allows you to be neutral in it, but in a playful way, so that you can laugh about and be, have wonder about and be surprised about the answer that you could get and the manifestation that could happen in the next moment because you're that playful as a 5-year-old, right? These are when these things are more likely to occur when you're neutral, and you're in that space where anything and everything could happen. Like when you're a 5-year-old kid, anything was possible. So you want to get back to that 5-year-old mentality with, in your neutrality, right? That's what's going to give you the most possibilities to manifest something different, or help someone else to manifest something different by changing their energy, right? Strengthening their weaknesses, neutralizing the dualities that they're struggling with. So, and when you're more neutral, you're going to feel less weight from moment to moment. That's really important. Part of this work is that we're going to be more at ease with moment to moment. We're not going to be struggling moment to moment. And so we want to manifest new possibilities, and by being neutral, we're going to manifest more different things. We're not going to have that anchor to change, and we want to be neutral in more aspects of our life, and more interrelate, what we call interrelated aspects. The life influences here: relationships, money, finance, career, purpose, time, aging, and health. So we want more of those aspects to be even with each other, and with no particular one prominent. People are so worried about their health, and that health almost never comes up. When people say they're worried about their health, it almost never comes up first. It may come up 25th, but it usually never comes up first, or a person worried about it, right? Because if nothing's changing, that's not the primary problem, right? Primary weakness is not the primary thing to work on. So be a little more playful, I would say, with your neutrality. Be a little more unfocused and scatterbrained. And I think you're going to have a lot more fun finding the answers. You're going to make it more likely to attract the answers, and more likely to shift and have something change in the next moment. So if we can delete the notion that we need difficulty or effort or focus, and let's do that right now. Anyone who's listening to this particular video, we're just going to delete that out of your spirit, body, and mind, and all the way back through the timeline, all the way into the infinite future, and then all the way back to the infinite past. And let's see if folks feel a shift on that. So that's stop focusing to get answers. So stay scatterbrained. Thank you for watching.